Good morning, everyone. It is the top of 8:30 now on your Sunday morning. We're following some breaking news this morning out of Elkhart. One person is dead and another is injured after a shooting late last night. Police are now working to find a suspect.
We are staying on top of breaking news on that officer-involved shooting at Elkhart tonight, where 3 people are dead and 2 police officers wounded are in the hospital. Those officers were shot at the Martin Supermarket on East Jackson Boulevard just before 6 o'clock tonight. 2 victims and the suspected gunman are dead. Our live team coverage begins with WSBT 22's Nick Outhoff.
This is a live look at the intersection of Michigan Street and Fairview Avenue. You can see a motorcycle and a truck collided involved in this accident. The motorcycle on the ground there.
Right away, we get to breaking news out of South Korea, where at least 170 people are dead after a plane crash. It's now being called the country's worst air disaster in decades. Right here, you can see the plane coming from Thailand that had just touched down, skidding on the tarmac before crashing into a concrete wall and exploding into flames.
We're following some breaking news out of Elkhart County right now. We're working to learn more about a SWAT situation happening right now at a home on the very west side of the county. This is on Pendleton Drive and Baugo Township Drive near County Road 100. Dispatch confirms a large police presence at the home started late last night and is still going on. You can see officials breaking down the fence as the hours-long situation unfolds.
Also learning more about that Cybertruck explosion just hours later in front of a Trump hotel in Las Vegas. Police say the suspect left a note calling the incident a, quote, wake-up call for Americans. Here you can see some of the messages the suspect wrote on his cell phone just before the attack. Police say they include political, domestic, and societal issues. The FBI believes the heavily decorated active duty Green Beret was struggling with PTSD and other issues.
A verdict still yet to be reached in the Delphi double murder trial. Jury deliberations will now continue into a 4th day beginning tomorrow morning at 9.
The FBI is now leading the investigation into the assassination attempt against former President Donald Trump. He was holding a rally in Butler, Pennsylvania yesterday when shots rang out. You are looking at those moments here and that injury to the former president. The campaign confirms, though, that Trump is okay and is not seriously hurt, despite that bleeding coming from his ear. We are going to have much more on that, including new information overnight about the suspect. But first, we need to get a quick check of your weather this morning.
We're going to Southern California now. A live look here where you can see a dangerous windstorm here, fanning flames, and a pair of fast-moving wildfires. In fact, so far more than 12,000 acres have been scorched in L.A.
Yeah, those images coming out of California are shocking. Crews working to put out the growing blazes as more than 30,000 people are evacuating from the area.
Another problem plaguing California right now is price gouging. Some businesses and landlords are driving up the prices of essential items like water, food, gas, hotels, and rentals. The state's attorney general is also urging people to beware of scams in the aftermath involving fake charities or people posing as contractors and insurance agents that target victims.
Weather warnings in effect as we track Milton. This storm, now a powerful Category 5 storm, is churning right here in the Gulf of Mexico, and it's expected to hit Florida this week. Now, we want to put this in perspective for you here at home, just how big this monster storm really is. You're looking at Hurricane Milton from space. Astronauts capturing this video from the International Space Station, which flew almost directly over the hurricane.
We have a lot to get to on this Sunday morning. TikTok officially banned in the United States. The popular social media app went dark last night, less than 2 hours before the ban was slated to go into effect. But it may soon be back on for more than 170 million American users. President-elect Donald Trump suggests he'll throw TikTok a life preserver once he takes office tomorrow. And then in the Middle East, the long-awaited Gaza ceasefire and hostage release deal is now in effect. The pause in that fighting was delayed by nearly 3 hours because Hamas reportedly didn't hold up their end of the deal. We'll have more on both of those in just a few minutes. But first, a checkup on your weather here at home.
We turn to the Middle East here at 10, where Israel has officially severed its ties with the United Nations Relief Agency for Palestinian refugees. Israel's government telling the UN just hours ago that it's terminating its 1967 agreement to work with UNRWA. It's one of the key distributors of aid to Gaza. The move all comes after Israel's parliament passed 2 bills last week to block the agency's activities in Israel. The U.S. previously told Israel that it must increase humanitarian aid into Gaza or risk losing weapons funding. U.S. officials say Israel has not done enough so far.
And in the meantime, President-elect Donald Trump's envoy to the Middle East is in Israel this weekend. According to Israeli officials, Steve Witkoff is meeting with Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. It's part of a last-minute effort by the president-elect to press for a ceasefire deal before he takes office in 8 days. Mr. Trump has threatened repercussions if Hamas didn't release the hostages by the time he's inaugurated.
And with just 8 days until Election Day, the presidential candidates are battling for ballots in battleground states. Former President Donald Trump hitting the campaign trail in Georgia today, while Vice President Kamala Harris spent the day in Michigan. Both candidates appealing to voters by leaning into specific issues where the polls show that they have an advantage. For Mr. Trump, that is immigration and the economy, and for the Vice President, that is abortion rights, and contrasting her character with her opponents.
Meanwhile, the race for the White House is now in its final days. The candidates pushing to get voters to the polls as the latest numbers show it's still an extremely tight race. New national polling shows Vice President Harris and former President Trump are tied at about 47%.
It's election eve, the race for the White House ending here in just hours with the presidential candidates making their final pitches to remaining voters. The two are in battleground states right now. Vice President Kamala Harris in Philadelphia ending her 5-event blitz through Pennsylvania, while former President Donald Trump hit North Carolina and is wrapping up his rally in Pennsylvania, where he will then head to Grand Rapids for a rally tonight. The presidential race that pollsters say is the closest ever, now in the hands of remaining voters.
We are following multiple major stories on this Monday night. President Donald Trump taking office for the second time. His return to the White House comes as the nation pauses to honor civil rights leader Martin Luther King Jr. And Notre Dame in the midst of its battle against Ohio State. Fans cheering on the Irish, hoping they'll bring home a national title from Atlanta. And our top story tonight, the bitter cold. Meteorologist Lynette Grant is starting us off tonight. Lynette, we are tracking dangerously cold temperatures.
Today begins 6 days of memorial events for the nation's 39th president, former President Jimmy Carter. He died Sunday at the age of 100. A motorcade will carry the former president's remains through his hometown of Plains, Georgia, starting about 10 this morning. Mr. Carter's body will then travel to Atlanta for a private service held at the Carter Presidential Center this afternoon. His body will lie there in repose, and the public will have a chance to pay its respects until Tuesday. The president's body will then be moved to Washington, D.C. and lie in state at the Capitol Rotunda until the state funeral on Thursday. The former president's body will then be brought back to Plains to be laid to rest next to his wife of 77 years, Rosalind Carter.
This is a live look in Indianapolis this morning, where the city is hosting the Olympic swimming trials this week. More than 1,000 top U.S. swimmers will compete in dozens of events during the 9-day Olympic qualifying meet at Lucas Oil Stadium. In most races, the top 2 finishers will then earn a spot on Team USA for this summer's games in Paris.
And a college football champion will be crowned tomorrow night as Notre Dame takes on Ohio State in the national championship game. And as you just heard, fans here at home, including Mrs. Allen's 2nd grade class, are cheering on the Irish as they prepare for the big game in Atlanta.